recap for you and myself. We have Patrick. He is our throttle. Sorry. Okay, so pretty average there. We got Razor Leaf, Bite, Leaf Edge, and Mega Drain. He's level 27. No, they evolve in their 30s. We got Dean here. We need to find a Dusk Stone for him. We'll be on the lookout for that. He's got special defense buff and attack. Oh, I don't have to. So we have Confuse Ray, Confusion, Spite, and Astonish. Dean's not pretty good right now. He's just kind of chilling. And once we can get some better moves, once we can evolve him, then we're going to be talking some power. So we have Harry. In here with some Spark, Bite, Thundershock, and Charge. He's got speed reduced, but an up in attack. Okay, and he's got Intimidate. Let's go. Levitate. Okay, and Authority. Then we have our MVP right now, Nora. We don't know. She might have earned her spot here, man. Like, she came through and clutched and saved our asses time and time again last. So speed up, attack down. Again with the Intimidate, that's nice. Does need some work on the move set. So tackle, double team, wing attack. I haven't really been doing her moveset just because I'm still not too sure. She's one of our possible throwaway mons if we can find something better, but she is still pretty powerful and she's... And then we have Aura here with Mud Slap, Water Gun, Water Pulse, Recover. She's got special defense down, special attack up, Storm Drain, so she draws in power from the water tap, and it boosts her special attack even higher, so that's pretty good. And then we got an egg that we're just running around here trying to hatch. Truth be told, it's a Hakimi egg. Spoiler, if you don't know, it's a Hakimi egg. So, no, we don't have a mystery gift. So I got my Manaphy on my last save on my personal save. So I'm wanting to see if I can get kind of two profiles that I can do 4 altogether. This is like the breeder type. They're not like Gen 5 though, so like I can just breeder wise done, and I'm just gonna have to anyway. Yes, I love it. In Let's Go. That's because they did it right in Let's Go. This So we won that. I still have no answers to field types. Skip you. have this beautiful ponytail. And we have a female. Book, character, female. I'm looking at my bookshelf to see what stands up. Do we have a rose yet? I don't know if we do, so... And I'm falling away again. Where's my R? I'm gonna name it Rose from Vampire Academy. You know what? Let's get rid of that egg. We know what the egg is. It's a Hakimi. It's not very useful. Ooh, get out of this grass. time that we get. Mystery box options. Crime kid. Basically what it's okay. I can't remember. I thought there was something. What about you? that's a level up. So let's see. None of my Pokemon, except for like 3. I don't got Nora here. You even got it. You did good. Now it's time for Nora. Yeah, you are. At least hate yourself. At least pause. Oh, Norho! This thing. I don't know what you can do. Let's go. Yeah, off those stats. You just need it. Hey, from Florida. Awesome. Yeah, so we're see what Rose can do. I don't have too much hope in faith in Rose right now. Potters, 25. Recovery game. If we don't get one hit. Harry, just end our massacre. We'll come and can't. We need to work on Nora and Dean. Nora can level up one more time before she can't be any more level up to the gym. And Dean, we can do a few levels on. So let's put Patrick. If there's anything we can use for a one-time help this. I don't want to use either of these. Oh, we have Rose already. Just because I feel it's cheating. Let's just go get some levels on a few things because I left trainers all over the place in the last row. Nope. Up this way. And hopefully we can stop from being massacred. How to use berries. Know how to do pop. Do they even have any effect other than you? long enough for me to finish up off it goes. That we would. Ooh, I know. That's not gonna be so much money because it's a casual playthrough. I'm not really worried about buying healing items and stuff like that. So we just kind of accumulated a lot. Currently don't. You know what? If I have Blizzard, I don't necessarily know. I don't mind for it quite yet. Some soda pop. I'll buy 3. That's annoying. I know it's like supposed to be a vending machine. That's how that works. Give me the option to buy them all. Patrick, how heavy are you? You're going to be a sick boy, but let's hold off on that. I'm going to keep that one in the back of my mind while we're on the track. We still have, okay, we need a whole lot. It's powerful, but replace with Sir. Not sure what. There's gonna be a ground move that replaces myself. Looks like it's gonna be debating between Ara and Patrick for Earthquake. Let's go. Confusion can get replaced with Shadow Ball. But Psychic Undine is where we want it. And then that's something in the back. I got Spark. He needs some type coverage other than dark. That's okay. I like French. I think I'm satisfied with the move sets for now. Give a heal. Attack number 2. And we're gonna start with down anywhere, go from there. Nora's our starting point. Oh, this stupid puzzle we gotta do again. go. This is our time. This is our time. Going down. Let's go, Mom. Revives don't even enter my mind, and the game fails me. Slot. Probably. Looks like we're living through a massacre again. What? Oh. You died for nothing? this one, bud. We couldn't have done without Aura. Oh my god. Dean was useless. His confusion was useless. We didn't get a single confused hack. And he snapped out pretty much right away. But Aura's accuracy drops were what saved us. That saved our butt from having to go part 3. There we go. Okay, well she's exploding. Patrick can't level up at all. Or do you yeah, you're stupid. Thank goodness. Okay, he needs my help. Oh, Lucas, let's go. I don't tolerate bullies. Let's kick their butts. Let's go. We're gonna show them what happens when they're mean children. After I heal. After I heal, I will come to your rescue. This is the bowl cuts. They're like the cult of bowl cuts. guess that's for later. So when they gave us Jirachi was level 5, you know what? We'll just throw it on, just for the lulz for now. In case I needed some death fodder and two roses now. One is Rose Twilight. And our Ponyta is Rose Nora does not give 2 shits. final ever. Oh, absolutely terrifying. I can use him for the gym later. You know what, Jirachi? Why not? Get some levels, my man. They don't know what they're doing. They're just, oh, my best friends. Far enough away, she can see me. Okay, Sydney. That is try to battle me, man. I had one battle. That looks to see. That looks like I should be able to go down there. All that for a honey tree. forget where they are. I know they put something on the map now, but still, I have no need for berries. I don't do contests or things like that. I don't do ever anything. I'll just play. At least for now. I have been trying to play pretty hard. It must be mine now. We're gonna go clear out the gym trainers. Oh, more berries. Show where you are pointing because it doesn't record my finger on the screen. It's like over at the top right area, kinda. That's alright. Someone. Crazy. Oh, I see. We'll have to surf and then up over there in that clearing spot. Okay. I'm not able to do that right now. Fire Rose is definitely soft. Let's see. Okay. that's not what I wanted. I wanted to see if I could go in behind. I don't know that space. issues with that, let me know. Okay, there it's gone. And now she's sitting there for second Pokemon. 11. She has a Martin. Meryl. Ooh. I just realized PP on Psych. Don't want to have to leave the gym. Leaving the gym is so foreign to me because rules that I play by, I go enchant or gym. That's it. But this is a casual playthrough. I'm gonna finish this battle and then we're gonna go on a quick break. I'm gonna get Vesemir from my mom and bring him up. And then I'm probably also going to still refill my drink as well, because we are only on gym 2 of the 4 that we want to accomplish tonight at 8:16. So, and we're out of sidekicks. Excellent. Oh, we got a level, Argo level, and Rose the first is up a level. Oops. 65. Oh, we're definitely getting rid of confusion. Okay, so we're gonna take about 5 minutes max, just to make sure I can get Vesemir. We'll get him settled up here, and then we will continue on. So we're gonna just be right back here. Your Lear's not going to save you here. What we named him? I think Micah. Named Micah, right? Let's go. What? Oh, it's a dream. Oh, Shell Bell. He's got a Shell Bell, not very much. Off you go. Okay. Excellent. Off he goes. Is Dean and Patrick are dead. Rosalia. That is for the Rosalia. Yeah, you lost. I'm just better than you. I was hoping something. I'm always excited.